So I might just start with a little disclaimer that so the CC Fund and all of the advancement staff is now working remotely, as you probably know. So we're all learning how to function in this way, and we've been holding a lot of meetings over video calls. But I'll just say, please forgive if you hear dogs barking or cats running across screens, or children making entries by accident. So, you know, it happens. But so excited to see so many faces here. We're going to do a roll call in a minute, but I thought we could start with staff introductions, because for many of us, we know each other by voice, but not necessarily by face. So this is a great opportunity to see what everybody looks like. So I'm just going to ask the staff to say their names, the classes and reunion years that they work with, and any programmatic areas that they cover. So, so I'm Susan Morrison Daniels. I'm Con class of 2001, and I am Director of Leadership Gifts and serving as Interim Director of Annual Giving. Lynn, why don't we go to you?
Okay, I'm Lynn Kreider. I am Assistant Director of the Annual Fund, and I also work with the Parent Giving, and I work with the reunion classes of 1950, 1955, 1960, and 1965.
Great. Ellen?
Hello, everyone. This is Ellen. I'm Assistant Director of Annual Giving. I work with the classes 1973 to 1983 and 2000 to 2009. And the reunion classes I have are 1975, 1980, 2000, and 2015. And I oversee the Class Gift Officer Program.
And Britt?
Hi, everyone. Brittany Richard, Associate Director in Annual Giving. I work with the classes of 1967 to 1972, including the 50th reunion, 1994 to 1999, including the 25th reunion, and then 2010 to 2014, so the 10th reunion. I also oversee our 1911 Society, so our Leadership Giving Society, and have some hand in our recurring giving program as well.
Great. Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Schulte. I work with the classes 1984 to 1993, which includes our 30th and 35th reunions. And then I also work with the classes of 2015 to 19. So that includes the 5th reunion in that group. On top of that, I am also the Annual Fund Liaison for Camel Athletics.
Great. And Gwen?
Hi, everybody. My name is Gwen, and I am the Annual Giving Coordinator. I work with the classes from the 1940s, and programmatically, I oversee and work with the students that work in our office, so the student calling program, and I work a lot with Salesforce and our integration.
Wonderful. So let me just lay out what we're planning to talk about today, and then I'll introduce our guest speaker. Well, I'm sorry, then we'll do roll call of who's on the call with us. So we're going to talk today with our Vice President for College Advancement, Kim Verstandig, who is on the line. Kim has been with us for about 2.5 years at Con. And she's going to give us an update on the college's response to COVID-19. So I'm sure you've seen communications, but this will be an opportunity to really hear from a senior administrator about what they all have been talking about, and the senior administrators have been meeting for the last
Hey buddy, how's it going?
3 weeks, every day.
I am working from home, as I imagine you are too.
Oh, can we ask everybody to mute out, please? Thank you. And then there'll be an opportunity for Q&A specifically about the college's response to COVID-19 and kind of what's happening on an all college level. Then after that, I will provide an update on the CC Fund and our fundraising thoughts going forward. And we'd really like to get your input and thoughts to guide us as we think about the next few months. And then we'll talk about some of the specific things that you as volunteers can help us do in the coming weeks and months. So Ellen, I'm going to toss over to you for roll call. I'm actually going to unmute everybody so that you can, when your decade is called, you can let us know who you are and what class year you are. So just be mindful of background noise, and I'm going to unmute everybody, but if you...
Okay, so I'm going to do roll call by decade. So we will start with the 1950s. So if you're from the 50s, I know we have Judy Acker on the phone from 57, and I see Helene as well. How are you? So just say your name and your class.
Ann Mary Capusta, 59.
Okay.
Lucy Iannotti, 57.
Great. All right. Is that it for the 1950s? Okay, good. 1960s?
I'm Barbara Hopper from 1961.
Hi, Barbara.
Heather Morrison, 1969.
Janet Wallens, 1964.
Okay. Last call for 1960s. All right. So 1970s.
Gina Yesko, 75.
I'm Barbara Opp, 1961.
Hi, Barbara.
Gwen Goff, 1970.
Hi, it's Jean Kelleher, 1973.
I'm Brian Roby, class of 73.
Hi, Brian.
There you go. Chip Clothier, 79.
Wiz Navari, 79.
Great. All right. Any more from the 1970s? No? Okay, 1980s.
Dodie Crawford.
88.
Hey, Dodie.
Tom Liptak, 1986.
Hi, Tom.
Jeff
Hi.
Busher, 84.
Okay.
Dodie Sutro Crawford, class of 89.
Hi, Dodie.
Samantha Capon Muldoon, class of 88.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Yep.
I think it's worth the trouble.
Jamie Glanton Costello, class of 89.
Noah Lipshin, class of 89.
Great.
Deb Hay, class of 89.
All right. Is that it for the 1980s?
Ellen, did you hear me? It's Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie, I did hear you. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the 1990s.
Aaron DeGravio, 91.
Okay.
Eric Stoddard, 1996.
Hello, Eric.
Mario Lorenzi, 1990.
Hi, Mario. All right. Is that it for the 1990s? Okay, 2000 to 2010.
Eric Gamble, class of 2000.
Hi, Eric.
And I'm Emily Gurry, 2009.
Oh, hello, Emily.
Hi, Ellen.
Harris Rosenheim, class of 2009.
Hi, Harris.
So this is Martha Merrill. I just dropped myself a minute ago. Class of 84. Hello.
Hi, Martha. Okay, any more from 2000 to 2010? No? Okay. All right, now 2010 to 2019.
I'm Natalie Dumart, class of 2019.
Hi, Natalie, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Matt Murdock, 2013.
Hi, Matt.
Right.
All right. Is that all? This is great. So it looks as if we have about 39 people on the call right now. I'm just going to go over a couple logistics next. So if you would like to show or hide your video, you can select the video camera icon. Depending if you're on an iPad or a computer, it's different, but it most likely is in the bottom left-hand corner. You can also mute by selecting the microphone icon in the bottom left-hand corner as well. We will be muting all of you, as Susan had mentioned, and we'll be muting to you until we have the question and answer portion at the end of of our different sections we'll be speaking about. So after Kim speaks, we're going to have a Q&A. Britt and Susan are also going to give updates, and we'll have another Q&A after then. So there'll be plenty of time to ask questions. And if you're joining by phone, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. And you can also raise your hand if you have like a burning question by clicking on the participants.
No, I can't even get anything.
Oh, it looks like Ellen just froze. So just to finish up on what she was saying, you can raise your hand if you have a burning question. If you are on the Zoom call, you can go to participants, and then when you find yourself, you should be able to see something that says raise hand. So you can do that if we're in the middle of something and you have a question. We can try to do that. But again, we're all adjusting to this, and this is probably the largest Zoom I've been on personally in the last 2 weeks. So, so I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody out, so so that we can hear Kim Verstandig. She'll unmute herself. Kim again is going to share an update on the entire college and our response to COVID-19 right now. Kim.
Okay, everybody hear me? All right. Sorry about that. The muting and unmuting is a little sensitive sometimes. First and foremost, thank you all so much for being on the call today. It is wonderful to see so many smiling faces. I'm so glad that Chip is joining us from a planet far away. That's wonderful to see. And our hope for all of you and your loved ones is that you all remain safe and healthy during this time. We also want to thank all of you for your love and support. I think one thing that's really been incredible through this whole thing has been the outpouring of love and support from our community. And so we particularly want to thank you for that. I want to provide really an update of what's transpired since President Bergeron's initial email to the community on March 11th, which was just about 2 weeks and 1 day ago. And a lot has transpired in those 2 weeks, and a lot has changed. First and foremost, in that letter, we did transition to a remote learning community for the remainder of the semester. During that time that this change was made, our students were on a 2-week spring break. So that created a set of challenges for us that related to how do we get students back on campus to get their things and get off campus. The Dean of Students office orchestrated a 10-day window of which students returned to campus in a safe environment. They filled out a Google form. People came in at certain time slots and were able to retrieve their belongings. For those who weren't able to retrieve their belongings, their rooms were packed up by either a friend or a staff member, and those items were shipped. We do have a small number of students that remain on campus at this time. There's about 53 students who remain on campus who, for one reason or another, were unable to go home or didn't have a home to go home to. We are providing one-on-one support for those students. They have a student mentor and a faculty connection. Obviously, we're providing food and making provisions for how students can have food available closer to them and where they are. Right now, we're doing a lot of grab and go, but trying to do the most healthy thing we can. The students are limited to the buildings that they can go in. And we're trying to figure out if we actually consolidate the students who are there into a building, but recognizing social distancing, as you can imagine. So in addition, for all of those students who have gone home, they have all settled into remote instruction, which began yesterday. From all preliminary indicators, it went very well, obviously with some technical glitches. But this has been a tremendous collaboration between IS, the faculty, the staff, and the Center for Teaching and Learning to support each other. Faculty came back early from spring break to prepare for remote learning. And there are just some incredible stories that are surfacing as to how this remote learning is going. And if you actually go on our website, there's a story of a few faculty members that they've posted. Also, the faculty passed legislation earlier this week related to the spring semester, and it focused on 3 things. Focusing on extended the senior thesis, the time for submitting a senior thesis to May 4th. It also suspended course feedback forms for the spring semester. Usually there are forms completed at the end of the semester about how the class went. That's been suspended. And then also they've given students an option of receiving either a satisfactory, unsatisfactory for the semester rather than a letter grade. That's up to the student. That decision needs to be made by May 6th. And they can actually choose the option for each class. All of our deans and all of the support areas are also working virtually. We are still conducting advising meetings for students. The Academic Resource Center is open. The Writing Center is open. All of it's being done virtually. And the Dean of Student Staff has also is starting to develop remote programming and events for students. I think you've probably seen in your own worlds, there's been a lot of virtual happy hours. Or Zoom tails, as people would call them, rather than cocktails, they're Zoom tails. Our students won't be doing that unless they're 21, but there are going to be a lot of programs and events that students can participate in virtually. Some of our athletic staff are offering workouts in the morning. Annalise Rios, who's our strength and conditioning coach, log on, it's 15 minutes. I heard it's pretty intense. So a lot of things going like that and new creative ideas. Many people have asked about what happens with room and board and tuition for the rest of the semester since we went to a remote remote learning and working. And students, the vice president for finance and administration is working on a formula where students will be either credited or refunded a portion of their room and board. If you're a current student who's returning in the fall, it will be credited towards next semester. If you are a senior, you'll see that in the course of a refund. And they're still working out the specifics of that and expect to be reaching out to the students later this week. Also, in terms of staff, as Susan mentioned, nearly 300 staff are working remotely. There are critical staff on campus. Just this past week, due to Governor Lamont's imperative that only essential workers stay on campus, we are calling them critical. So we do have several staff that do go to campus every day to provide meals for students, to continue to clean, our Dean of Student Staff, et cetera. For a smaller number of staff who are not able to work remotely, we've gone to either reduced hours or an on reserve status. And those who are placed on reserve will receive 40% of their pay. Connecticut College is a self-funded unemployment plan. So we will fund 40%. And then those who do go on reserve also have the option to apply through the state for the remainder that might get them to the 60%, which is the state marker. So really trying to be careful about taking care of our staff in the community who aren't able to work remotely and aren't able to go to campus. On a brighter side, admissions decisions were released on Saturday. For the class of 2024. There's a web page on our website for that. And unfortunately, we've had to cancel our Camel Days for April. These are our visit days for prospective students. But we are developing remote and virtual programs for those admitted students. In addition, our Candidate Acceptance Day, which traditionally has been May 1st, has been moved to June 1st. I think there still is a hope maybe that by the end of May, there might be a possibility of holding a Camel Day, but at this point, we've gone again to fully remote or virtual. Many of you have asked about commencement and reunion, and although we're holding out a little bit longer for official decisions on both, there is a commencement task force that is looking at the options for commencement if indeed an in-person ceremony on May 17th is not possible. And Catherine is a part of that task force. She recently sent a video to the class of 2020 and their parents, letting them know that commencement will not be canceled. We will find a way, a date, a place, a time to hold commencement and honor the class of 2020. We are thinking about if May 17th is not possible, which obviously it looks every day more and more like that is the case, that we will do something on May 17th to virtually recognize that class, and those plans are underway. In terms of reunion, which is scheduled for the end of May, we are currently working with our reunion classes to discuss what options might look like for postponement of reunion. Again, like commencement, we're not going to cancel reunion. It is looking more and more like postponing is going to be our option, but we're working with our class committees and class volunteers and gaining their input. We hope to have information about reunion out within the next couple weeks, so folks can make their plans accordingly. As I also mentioned earlier, the outpouring from our alumni and parent community has been really tremendous. Many folks have asked us, what can we do in this time? The college does have a student emergency fund, which was developed many years ago to help students in need. And so we deployed that student emergency fund over the last couple weeks. And the great thing is about 100 donors have given about $40,000 to that fund. Most of that fund has been spent now, and it actually has been spent on getting students home. There are many students who couldn't afford to buy a plane ticket home. So right now, about 35,000 of that fund has been spent. We will also help students who might not have remote access at home gain remote access so that they can continue to learn. As gifts come in, we'll continue to deploy them as necessary. There is a story on the website about the Student Emergency Fund, and there'll also be a feature in JOT today. So the Just One Thing that you will all receive. Also, we are working on a series of communications for our alumni community. The last time you all heard from Catherine was on March 11th, and she is currently working on a communication that will go out to our alumni body next week, just about remote learning, what's happening, sharing some links for folks, and just really updating folks on what's happening on campus and how the college is doing. So I am happy to take questions. If there's something else that I haven't covered that you'd like to know, I will do my best to answer your questions.
And I would just suggest that whoever has a question, just unmute yourself or raise your hand and I can unmute you. Again, you can unmute yourself on the Zoom, or if you're on the phone, you just hit *6. Samantha, let me unmute you. Go ahead, Samantha.
Hi, I just had a quick question. Since this online distant learning is just a huge, well, it's a huge change, but it's also a huge opportunity to learn how people learn from remote learning and distance learning. I know you mentioned they were suspending the course feedback forms. Are they going to be doing some course feedback forms that maybe aren't tied to, for example, teacher compensation, but that capture some of the things the students learn about what works and what doesn't, and sort of, so we can use this as a growth opportunity?
Yes, absolutely. They're looking at ways to do that and to do that remotely. There have been some really neat things that have happened. For example, students who are in art classes that didn't have art supplies at home, and faculty gathering art supplies and shipping art supplies at home so that they can have remote classes together. So there are a lot of things that are currently happening, and I think there are going to be opportunities that the Dean of the College is going to look at to survey how this is working, what's not working, and faculty are on listservs all across the country. If you get the Chronicle of Education, there was a feature in there the other day about remote learning, and Mark Forrester, one of our faculty members, was featured in that and some of the unique things that Khan is doing. So, but yes, we hope to be able to provide feedback from students and faculty about how this is working.
Great. I just feel like as an institution dedicated to not only just learning subject matter, but how to learn, and we have such a strong educational program at Khan, I would love to see us take advantage of sort of an unprecedented research pool.
Yep, agree.
Okay, I'll mute myself again.
Thank you, Samantha.
Can I just say something?
Yes, Barbara.
I'm Barb Frieda.
Oh, yes.
I could see what's going on. I can't get my picture up there or anything, but I think you're doing great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Wow.
And I couldn't raise my hand for the class of 1964. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
There has been some concern among people that now that colleges are getting into this remote learning, that this may become the way of the future, which of course, for my thinking, takes away 90% of the college experience. Do you have any feeling about this?
I agree wholeheartedly with you, Judith. I think Connecticut College is built on a residential learning experience, and I don't see that changing long term. I think the college is committed to that. Obviously, this is an unprecedented time in terms of what's happening in the country. And I think that, for now, for this semester, it's what we need to do. But everybody is hoping and planning that we will return in September for business as usual. And if things indicate in the future that perhaps that might not be possible in September, we're also thinking about things of maybe a delayed start to the semester. There's so many things that you could look at, but for now we're committed to residential education and will continue to do so.
And if I might, financial part of it, if you go to remote learning too, from a parent's perspective.
You know, the interesting thing is students didn't want to go home. They wanted to stay on campus. And I think that's what we heard across the board is they love their Khan experience, which is being on campus and being part of an incredible environment, both social and learning and extracurricular. And they cannot wait to return to campus when it's possible.
Great.
Hey, Kim, it's Wisner. Is there any sense yet of the impact on the fiscal budget for this year? Losing some of those room and board charges and the like?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've actually been looking at this on a daily basis. And obviously our goal is to balance the budget for the year. So what we're looking at is what the total of the refunds and the credit looks like, what the reduced spend is based on the fact that we're not on campus and that you're not buying as much food for students, that departments aren't spending money on events. So there's a lot of different things that we're looking at. And I know Susan's going to touch on this later. The annual fund plays a critical role in that. And, you know, we need to talk about that in a sense of there's a goal for the year that's part of that larger budget. And how does that help us get to the finish line? You know, right now we have a path to a balanced budget, but we're still working on some of those figures.
Thanks, Wisner. Other questions, comments?
again, I just want to thank everybody for their love and support. And, you know, one of the things that we've seen, and I hope that you've seen it in your lives, is how people are coming together in extraordinary ways. And I think to your point, Sam, this really does provide an opportunity for us to be really creative and to look at things differently for the time being. So we're seeing that with our faculty and our staff and our students. We want to, you know, continue to be creative and support the college in the way that we can. So thank you all so much for what you do and how you do it and being there for us. We're grateful.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for taking time to join us. I know everybody's curious to hear what's going on campus, and so glad that so many volunteers have joined us. So we're going to move on now to talking about you know, what the implications are in terms of fundraising. So where we are now, what we're planning for the near future, and some of it is hard to plan for. So I think it's important to be really honest about that. You know, there's no question that amid this pandemic that has affected every single one of us in some shape or another, we really have to rethink our approach to fundraising. There's the tone and what people are thinking about now compared to 3, 4, 5 weeks ago is completely different. So let me just tell you where we are and what we're thinking about and where we could use your input and your help. So currently we have paused on all of our broad-based solicitations. We did send one email on March 13th to all alumni and former parents. We did not send to current parents about the ability to give to the Student Emergency Fund, as Kim mentioned. And so we're taking a moment right now to rethink about what our communications look like for the remaining 3 months of the year. We are, as staff, continuing one-on-one conversations with people if it's appropriate. We were midstream in talking to some folks about their annual gift or a significant gift. And as it feels right, and if the donor is in the right place to continue that discussion, we are continuing those conversations. We have, as you all know, we sent out a communication that we have postponed our 48-hour challenge, and we're currently considering what that could look like. I don't think anybody wants to give up on the idea of a giving day, and we're looking at what our peers are doing. We're looking at what, you know, thinking about what feels right for our community. Some schools have canceled their giving days altogether. Some have postponed, and some are moving forward, but with a slightly different tone. So we're thinking about all of those things internally, and you know, just haven't quite gotten there yet. We will be celebrating Founders Day in some way as a celebration, and it's really an engagement opportunity. So we have a conversation even yet this afternoon about what that might look like. And as Kim said, one of our key things that we're focusing on is the need to balance our budget this year. And that's where the CC fund comes in. You know, there's still a lot that we're trying to figure out in terms of how much money we're saving on food. What exactly is getting refunded or credited to families? You know, because as you can imagine, each and every case is different in terms of financial aid and work study and all of those things. But if you, so let's talk about where we are with the CC fund right now. You'll remember we actually increased our goal to 6.75 million this year. And part of that thinking and ability to increase that was that we were, the athletics giving was now part of the CC fund. So given that spring sports had been canceled, there's actually a cost savings there, unfortunately. And then there are some other savings. So Kim and our CFO, essentially, Rich Madonna, have talked in earnest about what do we really need to raise for the Connecticut College Fund this year. And we've settled on the number of $6 million. That's really going to help us to have a balanced budget this year. Currently, as of today, we have raised $5 million in gifts and pledges. So we have $5 million committed. 1.6 million of that is in outstanding pledges. So, and a good amount of those are in big pledges, but there are a lot of pledges out there. So we are going to focus very hard on fulfilling those pledges. And this is one area in which you all can help us, is in making sure, and we'll get you lists and all kinds of things like that, but this is going to be a big focus as somebody who said, I can do $100 or $500 or $1,000 this year, and doing our best to fulfill as many of those as possible. We typically have a very, very good fulfillment rate. I think last year we only had about 30 people who defaulted in their pledge. So we feel very positive about this, but of course, there are people who have lost jobs during this time, and we need to be very mindful of where people are. So, but the college has its needs as well. So if we look at that $5 million, if we were able to fulfill 100% of our pledges, that leaves us with a gap of about $1 million. And that's the other thing that we're going to focus on, is where to find that $1 million between now and June 30th. The most important piece there is going to be those who gave last year but haven't given yet this year. Some of you know the term buy bunts. So we're going to focus very heavily on the people who give to Con year in and year out. They gave last year and they haven't yet made a gift this year. And that's the other area that you can really help us. And we'll make sure that you have lists, and you know, whether it's in your class, or I'd also say, you know, if you know people in other classes and you can ask them too, we're going to ask for your help on that at this time. Currently, we have about 2,580 donors. That's down about 350 donors from last year at this point. And you know, we would have hoped to make that number up during the 48-hour challenge, but obviously we need to shift that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have fewer donors this year than in previous years, but we're going to do our absolute best. You know, I think this is a time where language and tone is really important of what we're saying to people, and you know, being mindful of where they are in their lives. So here's where we're going. You know, we're thinking every day about what's the status of the pandemic. Where does Con fit into that? How are people thinking and feeling, and what's the right way to communicate with people? And this is an ever-evolving situation. So we really want to focus on how to thoughtfully reach out to constituents, and what they need to hear from us right now, what would be helpful. And this is where we would ask, you know, for your feedback of, you know, specifically, what do you think your classmates and other alums want to hear from the college right now? And I'd like to open the floor. I think we should do the same format just so that we're not talking over each other, but if you want to unmute yourself or raise your hand, and I can unmute you. If you're on the phone, *6 to unmute yourself. But we'd really appreciate hearing what you think the alumni community would like to hear from us.
I'm assuming then that we should go on about our business of contacting our classmates.
Yes, I think you can. And a lot of that can just be checking in with people and seeing how they're doing, how they're feeling. You know, what are they, you know, what are they experiencing in their community? We have seen already in some of our staff outreach that people are expecting to be asked for a gift, and they know that the college has needs at this time. And so we all need to help each other with the language that's right and the tone that feels right. So yes, you absolutely can be in touch with your classmates as you see fit. And some of them would be expecting to be asked for a gift at this time. So you can help with that. I see, I don't know exactly who this is. Jeffrey, I'm gonna unmute you.
Yeah, hi, no, class of 84.
Yes.
Question, so you said, hey, so you said we need to raise $1 million by June 1 or June 30, whatever, at the end of the fiscal.
Mhm.
Can we push that to the fall? I mean, we're doing the same thing. So I'm on the board of my kid's independent school, and we've got everything on pause. We're going through a capital campaign, and we are just pausing everything
Mhm.
because we cannot, with the market down 40%, we just can't. In fact, we worry about the status of the pledges to the capital fund to date. So we're just not reaching out to anyone. And I will say, just as an aside, we've been doing remote learning for 3 weeks.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of skepticism at the beginning, a lot of sort of anger, and not at the school, but just about how, well, everything. The governor, a lot of parents felt like it was all unnecessary. It has gone so well. Even parents who grumble enormously about everything have been extremely complimentary about how well our school has done. Now, granted, everyone's in the same time zone, so we can have, synchronized learning very easily. It'll be interesting to see what my daughter, her experience is. She goes to school back east, so she's going to be having to, those 8 a.m. classes are 5 a.m. Her friends in Hawaii, it's going to be a lot more challenging. So we'll see what the parents say about that. But in general, that goodwill earned has been huge. But we talk about this all the time. We're not starting up any fundraising we don't know when we'll start again. Anyway, that's it.
Right. That's helpful to hear. And I think that we do feel that the personal outreach is really important right now, because that way you can gauge what somebody's thinking or feeling. And if a gift conversation is not appropriate and it's not the right time, then we won't have it. I think the reality is no matter what we do, some people are going to like it and some people aren't, because we can't know where everybody is coming from at this time. So, Noelle, I saw your hand up somewhere. Let me unmute you.
Sorry, I'm working from my iPad because I'm having some internet issues. I can't unmute myself on my iPad. So if such a large part of the giving year revolves around reunion, and since you're not really doesn't look like you're gonna have an on-campus reunion, is there a plan to have small, maybe virtual reunion groups, and then maybe that's an opportunity to make up some of those pledges? Because I know last year we had a lot of luck with 5-year pledges.
Mhm.
And maybe if they're smaller, and we focused on really small amounts last year, because
Right.
it is very hard to ask people for money. People that 2 weeks ago were very secure in their jobs are there's so much anxiety. But maybe if you had an event of some kind, I was on a 50th birthday Zoom call last night. So, there are ways to, have events in this time to sort of take the burden off. But it would have to really be focused, and the communication with the messaging is important.
Mhm.
The way it's messaged, the way it's delivered, without a lot of pressure.
Right.
I don't know if I'm comfortable. I would be okay asking people that have already made pledges to see if they can send their pledges in, but I
Mhm.
don't know if I'm comfortable calling people and asking them for new pledges now. It's just really not the right time.
Okay. It's really helpful to hear, Noelle. And I think this is exactly why we need your feedback, is to see what you all are thinking and feeling about reaching out to your classmates and friends. And so
we have classmates that are worried about how they're going to, pay for their kids' tuition.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of people in our class who have a lot of kids in college.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's right. And I actually think that understanding to the best that we can where people are in their lives and what the implications may be of this you know, based on children, based on life cycle kinds of things.
Right, that's our decade, you know.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Noelle. And I just, I love the idea of kind of virtual get-togethers. I think we're all seeing the power of that. And so, you know, we haven't made a decision about reunion yet, but, you know, we've got to look at alternatives right now. And so that's a really great idea. I see Eric has his hand up. Let me unmute you, Eric.
Wonderful.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thanks. Yeah, so I just wanted to reinforce, I think it's great to hear that President Bergeron will be sending a message around, I think you said next week. So I think in terms of, you know, how can we as volunteers help, I think us piggybacking off of the communications coming from the college will be great. So obviously I think we're all inundated with any number of emails from all sides of everything that we're involved with nowadays. So finding that right balance is fantastic. So I think, you know, giving a general update on a lot of the stuff that Kim just shared with us earlier, coming directly from the leader of the school, I think will give us all some assurances, and then more importantly, help us all answer what is hopefully a common question of how can I help? Another suggestion on top of that as well, something that we're doing at my institution is we're doing a virtual town hall with all of our alumni sometime in May. So that might be a neat opportunity. Obviously, I think it's very difficult to make any kind of plans nowadays, but I think sometime, obviously, you know, was it Jeff, I'm sorry, who maybe made the point earlier, can we push back? I mean, obviously, June 30th is the school's fiscal year. That can't be changed. So our fiscal needs don't change in any way. But I think if we look at that June 30th and kind of create a communication schedule sometime between now and then, and have President Bergeron do some sort of, you know, kind of virtual town hall sometime in the final 6 weeks or so of the fiscal year. And that way we as volunteers can jump off of that and kind of reinforce some of those messages that are coming from the college. We can make those a little bit more personalized for our class and our circumstances, and encourage people to make gifts at, you know, whatever level they find personally meaningful, given their own circumstances.
That's great, Eric, and thank you for that. I know where you work and what you do, so your input is very valuable. So I love the idea of a virtual town hall, and we are thinking about ways to, you know, incorporate the president in many of these communications. So great. And Samantha has her hand up. I'm going to unmute her.
I just wanted to build on sort of what both Jeff and Noelle were saying. The idea of right now, you know, it's a tough time to ask people to give money. And this idea of what do you think people would want to hear right now? Prior to asking people for money, I think we need to seed success stories of what's happening on campus in terms of the virtual learning. You know, if they're having a huge success at the institution he's at, it would just make sense to me that if our students have small success stories, and then building on Noelle's idea that a lot of my peers have students at Connecticut, there's a huge sense of pride in seeing someone overcome obstacles and get creative, and really embrace this as a new opportunity, as difficult as it is to think of it that way. I think you can't ask people for money to support the school. Well, it's difficult to ask people for money to support the school if you haven't shown where the school is heading and how they're managing things. So it's almost like you need to seed a sense of pride and a sense of community and a sense of, wow, look at what they're doing. This is amazing, before you call people and ask them to financially support the school, because otherwise it just sort of feels tone deaf, but it also just feels like, well, what are they going to do with that money? Are we just, you know, nobody's there, they're not eating in the dorms, why aren't they using, you know, I think you need to make the case for how exciting the learning can be, even though it's not what we would ideally dream of.
Absolutely.
There needs to be a very strict communication schedule built out with things like town halls, but also I think, especially for a lot of the alumni who may not be as technologically engaged as the people on this call, using the magazine to kind of highlight creative learning strategies for people to see and work is really critical.
And it's a wonderful idea, and actually is right on track with some of what we're planning. So we do have a communications meeting this afternoon that I think is going to start to build that timeline. And our communications team is also building a bank of stories right now of what is going really well in the classroom and what are the success stories. And right now we're thinking about it as a social media push, but I can see it via email or a web page, and making sure that we're getting that information out to everybody as well. I see 2 more hands raised. I want to make sure we get to them and then we can move on. Oh, and I see Chip has his virtual hand raised. Okay, 3, and then we're gonna move on to the last piece of our conversation, because we did say it was going to be an hour. I don't want to keep people too long beyond what we said. Chip, please.
2 thoughts. The first thought is, what about suggesting that we make calls that are simply finding out how everybody's doing? Not a fundraising call, but simply, are you okay? What's going on? You know, how are you coping with this? It is a community call, if you will. And then the second thing is, when it comes time to making the fundraising call, I really look at it that this is the prime time to think about participation instead of amount. And that for all intents and purposes, with live bunts and side bunts, we know there's been support in the past. We may not be getting the same level of the same level of gifts, but the most important thing we do is we get people to stay in the game with some kind of a contribution. And so participation to me is that message.
I don't think anybody could say it better than you just did, Chip. So, and I think we would all encourage any of you to reach out to your classmates. You have their contact information. We can get you lists. Please keep in touch. You are wonderful ambassadors for Con, and we want to make sure, especially at times like this, you know, people say, we only hear from you when you're asking for money. Well, this is a perfect opportunity to say, I care about you. I want to make sure that you're okay. Our connection is Connecticut College. And how are you doing? So thank you for that point, Chip. Let's see.
Susan, can I just quickly add, you know, every donor is an owner. and they want to know how their enterprise is doing. So the things that Kim talked about are important. And I think that you know, Catherine having sent out her emails, but also there are other other communications that should come to keep people updated on what their institution, which they own a piece of, is doing. And I think it's really helpful. And to the extent that they are told, they feel like they have a responsibility.
Well said.
I'm going to mute.
Dina, I think you're next. I'm going to unmute you.
I think that, you know, this is our reunion year, and I think that the calls are going to be very tricky, because I think that the gives are highly associated with the coming back, especially for my class. So I think it's what Chip said is really good, to sort of just start calling with the just how's everyone doing, and then play it out later on, because at this point we still don't know, based on what it said on the website. I think I looked yesterday that a call isn't going to be made until April 1st about, well, a definite call isn't going to be made till May 1st, but I don't know if that's going to change. I mean, that just seems really late, especially if people are going to be traveling from far. So, so I think it's going to be hard to get people to commit before.
Yeah, I think it is tricky. We completely understand, and we're trying to look at, you know, some data of, you know, how this could impact, and you know, the reality is, if we do need to postpone reunion, it is truly a postponement, because nobody wants to cancel reunion. And I think we could look at people who are traditional givers, you know, live aunts, those who may be motivated by reunion. And those are the most faithful folks, but let's make sure we're in touch with people personally and see where we go. Let's see, I've got Emily and Paige, and then we're gonna start to wrap up. So Emily, I'm gonna unmute you.
This is Gwen. I've had my hand raised for quite a while.
Oh, Gwen, I'm so sorry. For some reason I didn't see it. Please go ahead, Gwen.
Well, I mean, we have our 50th reunion. I'm from the class of 1970, Gwen Goff, and we almost didn't graduate. So, you know, we're total as a class, we're totally over the disappointment of not having a reunion in May. Let me just say, I think that the college needs to make a decision sooner rather than later about reunion. There are a number of people are in compromised health positions, and you know, but want to be supportive and get back together. So I think that the sooner you make a decision, the better. I'm happy to reunion with my 50th class on the 51st year. And I think that we have been reaching out to our classmates just over the last 3 weeks, just asking people how they are. We're in a shelter in place down here in Texas, and you know, it's, and I know a lot of people have more pressing problems up in New York and other states, but I think that to try and spread this decision out, I mean, some people I don't think are going to travel until there's a vaccine, especially if they have underlying medical conditions. And I think to try and do something in September or something else or August is not responsible to some of the older classes. So.
Right. We definitely hear you, Gwen, and I think that what we're trying to do, honestly, is we're trying to make a decision as soon as possible. But what we're trying to do is talk with every single reunion class to get their input before we make a decision. So that's kind of where we are. And you know, among this group, what we're hearing the most is that, like you said, you know, maybe doing a reunion next year of the O's and 5s with the 1s and 6s. And so that may be the possibility. But again, please, that's not official. We're doing our best to survey everybody on the volunteer committees before we were to do anything like that. I just want to get through our last couple of people. Emily, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, you did it. Good job.
I just wanted to say I agree with showcasing the student success stories, because I think that's what a lot of our donors are going to want to support. But I think people also support faculty members. So I work at MIT Sloan, obviously a very big research institute. And so when I'm reaching out to my prospects, I am sending articles, webinars written by our faculty members that have to do with COVID-19. And I think that I'm sure there are people who are psychology professors, I don't know, anyone who's an economist at Con, if they're writing something that is relevant, you can send those type of things to us, and then we can send that out. And then you sort of do a soft ask saying that, you know, these are the type of people that we're trying to support. All of these great things come out of Con. And then at least at Sloan, we're finding that it's 30% more expensive to move to virtual learning. And so giving those type of facts and numbers, I think is important. Everyone wants as much information as possible. I think not saying anything to our classmates and to the school is not a great decision, but I do think that we have to be, as everyone said, we have to be careful in the message that we're sending out.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And it's a great point, because we're thinking about the students and we're thinking about the faculty. I had a former boss and mentor who would always say, you know, a college or an institution, if you break it down, it's faculty and students. That's what you need to have teaching and learning. And I think that's absolutely spot on. And just so you know, so students were on spring break for a while. Today is day 2 of remote learning. So we're just now starting to get a sense for what this really looks like. And there are going to be such rich, wonderful stories that come out of this. So thank you, Emily. And Paige, I'm going to unmute you.
Hello, I'm from the class of 2005. I was just as another reunion class, and in a class where a lot of I have since reconnected on Marco Polo with my even just core group of 5 people, and it's been really wonderful. One of the things I was thinking about is I know at one point you guys had like a party box, so to speak, where if you're getting together with your group of con friends, you'd send a box of stuff that's all con related. And I was wondering if we end up, you know, putting reunion off till next year or down the line, I know that I would probably still try to get together with my friends once it's safe to do so. And I was wondering if you could kind of reincarnate or re-emphasize kind of the quote unquote party box where you can drive that engagement where, you know, and then have them send in pictures or whatever. But it just might be an option to consider if with reunion being moved.
That's an awesome idea, Paige. I've seen those party in a boxes, and especially with like Zoom tails. You know, I actually wanted to find some sort of camel to put in my background, and most of my camels are at the office right now. But you know, oh, Wisner's got his camels right nearby. Perfect. So, you know, I think those are really fun ideas, and I think, you know, at this kind of moment, whatever community building we can do, the better. So thank you. That's I'm definitely going to pass that along to some of our colleagues. So in an interest of time, it's 1:04. I'm going to turn over to Ellen, who's going to talk just very briefly about how I've already mentioned a couple of ways that we are going to ask for your help. And she's got a couple of other ideas, and then we'll wrap up real quick, okay? Ellen, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yep, I'm unmuted. Sorry for dropping off before. So just to let everybody know, wellness calls, we're going to suggest everyone to do wellness calls. You're going to have a great response because everybody's picking up their phone these days. So please reach out to them. And your class managers will be in touch with class lists. And then moving forward, when we move into like the LIBUNTs and pledge calls, we'll be updating you with that. But when you do reach out to your classmates and, you know, some of them, if they're having financial issues or whatever, please let your class manager know so we can kind of mark it in the system. And another thing I'd like to echo what Eric had said earlier is just pushing out content on social media we share. It'll be really informative for all of your classmates. And I can say Chip, for instance, who is in space right now, if you can see him on the screen. He's from the class of 1979, and he's been doing a great job of sharing on his, the class of 1979's Facebook page, like any information that the college is sending out and just general updates. People are really appreciative of it. And I think that's about it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact your class managers. We're all here and we're all available. We'd love to talk to you on the phone too, or do virtual chats. So please know that we're here. And that's it. Back to you, Susan.
Great. So, and in terms of how to reach us, obviously we have our emails, but also all of our office phone numbers are forwarded to our cell phones or home phones. So you can call us at our regular number at Connecticut College that you would find on our directory, and you will magically get us at home. So no hard things about how to reach us. So I just want to thank you all again for joining us. You know, this is a time when we are seeing people come together, and you as our volunteers are our frontlines, you know, frontline folks, and the touches that you can have with your classmates and your fellow alums is so critical at this time. So thank you for all that you do. I also just wanted to remind people, we're actually going to be pushing this out on social media too, but if you're bored and you're looking for things to do, and you haven't yet listened to all of Catherine Bergeron's podcasts, there are about 13 episodes, and it's called Think, Do, Lead. You can find it on our website. We can put it in our recap notes here, but there's actually some really wonderful ones. She just does a really good podcast. So, you know, as people are looking for things to do, I would highly recommend that. So thank you again. Please be in touch with us as you would like, and thank you for all that you do for Con throughout the year, and especially in the next few months. So take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye, thank you.
Bye. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Judy. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Stay well.
You too.
All right, I think I'm gonna end the meeting for everyone, okay?
All right. Bye, Susan.
All right, take care, bye.
Bye.